My name is Valeska, and I'm working with Living Archives. As of today, it is February 21st, 2023, and there are 164 cases of COVID-19 in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg County. Each subject is not wearing a mask due to the low risk. Okay. Introduce yourself, so you can just do that now.
Okay. Well, like I said, Mark Heath Anthony George is my name. I go by Mark. Been in Charlotte for about almost going on, 4 years now? 4 years. Married recently, and, happy to be here. Hope Valeska.
Thank you. I think they do ask if you can give a description of your what you look like physically, just in case anybody can't see, basically.
Okay. Well, I am 6'3", approximately 198 pounds as of this morning. I have been called light brown, but I go best black. But yeah.
Awesome. All right, so let's start out with this handprint that we just finished doing.
Sounds good.
Hold on, I think we did want you to describe yourself, but it's fine. We'll just keep moving and come back to it. Okay, so tell me what you were feeling, or what you thought about this reflection.
Well, it was interesting thinking about how I felt during the height of the pandemic. It was a lot tougher than I thought it would be. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can you share your map?
Oh, yeah, for sure. We will start with the fingers, the palm.
Whatever you want to. You don't have to share the whole thing, or if you want to share the whole thing, that's fine too.
Okay. So when as a tall, black, introverted, open-minded, resourceful black man, my palm consists of the military, college, and marriage as far as my routes. I said the three words that I thought of was worried, grind, and family is what I brought to mind with COVID. What it gave me was increased financial stability. And as far as my people that I relied on for the most part was my wife, parents, siblings, and close friends.
What stood out to you the most?
Decreased financial stability, which is probably the most surprising as well.
Yeah, you know what? I will say that I also had financial security. Yeah, I feel the same way. Yeah.
The only thing I think about. Right?
Why do you think that financial, that's something that?
Well, I got promoted twice. I went from Apple's North Lake to Apple South Park. Got promoted there from expert to genius as well. So,
okay.
And then my wife, she worked in a nursing facility, so they had a lot of bonuses when COVID hit.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. So what feelings came to mind when you thought about COVID-19 pandemic with this exercise?
Well, it brought back the initial scare of COVID. I remember working in a pharmacy when it first hit, and you didn't know what to expect, what it was going to bring, to then catching it myself, actually feeling the effects, which felt worse version of the flu, then to seeing all the benefits and the negatives that it brought to my life, right? Mm-hmm. As far as people who got it didn't actually recover, and then you have some people who got it didn't even know they had it, right? So, but as far as this exercise, mainly, like I said, mainly brought back memories I didn't think I even realized was there for sure.
Yeah, I agree. So what is one thing that you think you gained from the pandemic?
Oh, money, for sure.
Yeah.
Money and time as well, for the most part. I definitely have a lot of time to focus on things I wanted to focus on, whether that be video games, working out, my wife, that can never get back.
Who was surrounding you? Who was your support system during that time?
Me and my wife, for the most part, because we lived together. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we stayed in close contact with our families, but.
Gotcha. Okay. So where is home for you right now?
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Where were you born?
New York, Queens, New York.
And how long have you been in Charlotte?
I've been in Charlotte since January 2019.
Oh, wow. So the year before
COVID.
Yeah. So describe your experience during the last 2 years more surrounding COVID-19? Like, let's go into a little bit more deeper about.
Well, for me, it wasn't too hard because I'm an introvert. So I definitely was comfortable staying home, playing video games, playing basketball at the gym was pretty hard because it was pretty locked down. But other than that, it wasn't too hard for me. For my wife, it was a little bit harder because she wanted to go out a little bit more. She wanted to actually get out of the house, go on walks just to get some fresh air. But it was pretty easy for me because I got to stay inside. Other than that, as far as, like I said, the scaredness of catching it, though, was probably the worst part. Like, not knowing at first that people were wearing gloves, people were wearing masks.
Yeah.
There was no toilet paper.
Right.
There was a lot of, unknown when it first happened, especially working in the pharmacy. I don't know. Anybody that coughed, you was like, I don't even know if I should be here, right?
Right.
So,
yeah. So you talked a little bit about, the gloves and things like that. So what other things can you remember from those early days?
A lot of hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
A lot of hand sanitizer. What else? Alcohol wipes. We had to use a lot. My wife was the mask specifically. It's like we didn't know what kind of mask to use. What was the best one? The N95 or can I use any mask? Some people were double masking. That was probably like I said, the part that I remember the most. It's because I feel like a lot of people were not using common sense. They were like, oh, we got to wear gloves, but then you wear gloves inside when you just wear them outside. So a lot of counterintuitive stuff happening, but that's and like I said, no toilet paper because I felt like we had to search on Amazon to get it. It was crazy.
Yes. I had to wake up multiple times, 6 a.m, right when the store opened to make sure I could get them. I remember it was wild. So what are things that you did during the lockdown?
Worked out, played a lot of games, and we worked from home. So that was the first time I had experience with remote work. We went from Apple Retail to Apple Care, essentially. That was pretty interesting, but other than that, obviously didn't do any traveling, didn't really go anywhere. So yeah, it's working.
How was that change from working retail to working? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Loved the remote work, hated the work I was doing. So it was a little bit different.
Okay.
Like I said, working in the store, seeing people's face to face, you get a little bit of anxiety, not knowing, but not knowing what my next phone call would be was even more anxiety, right? I'm able to read my next appointment job. I'm able to take a little bit of breaks between appointments, having a 2-minute timer between each call, not knowing what the next call would bring was a lot more anxiety bringing. But like I said, didn't like the phone calls necessarily, but loved working from home for sure. Not having to make that commute every morning, having more time for myself was pretty awesome.
And was it really sudden, the change because of the pandemic?
Yes. So I think we closed down in March of 2020. I started doing the Apple Care in July. That's before they started making us. It was volunteer. So I volunteered in July. I started doing that, but it was really a 2-week process of the time I volunteered to the time I actually started working.
Can you remember any of the thoughts or feelings that you had just seeing how things were changing so quickly?
Yeah, it was, like I said, it was mostly anxiety because I didn't know what that change was going to lead to, right? It could have been positive for me or negative for me, right? Watched a lot of Walking Dead, so a little nervous about if we're going to have to bunker down, what we're going to need. So that was it was like I said, the first few months was so unknown about what the effects of COVID would have, how we spread it, how to prevent it. It was just a lot of guessing. And that's the part that made me uncomfortable because I did not like having to guess what was going to keep me safe and what was going to keep my wife safe. So.
Right. And are you and your wife similar in how you dealt with it, or is 100%. She also introverted?
Well, yeah, she's also introverted, and she also works in the hospital. So it was she was seeing those effects firsthand of what it was like. She worked in a nurse home for a little bit, and at one point, it was 50% of nurse home was gone from COVID.
Wow.
And so that was just a lot on her. Nervous to bring it from one patient to another. That's just going from one room to the next. You have to make sure you don't have any of the effects from the other room. So
yeah,
it did not know. Now also just bring that home. It's also a little I don't want to have my husband sick, my wife sick.
Right. So. Did you feel like you had to be what did you feel as far as a support system for her?
I felt it was not really that support system for her. it's knowing, because I knew at the hospital they were going to do what they needed to do. I just knew for me working in retail, I didn't know if anybody else was going to be doing what they needed to do. So me, it was like, I have to make sure I mask up every day. I have to make sure I don't wear gloves at work because it's not comfortable, but constantly washing hands, using hand sanitizer. Just because I don't know if I'm bringing it from home to the job or to the job or back home. And either way, it's not going to work out good for us. So,
Yeah. Have your friendships or family relationships changed during the pandemic?
1,000%, because I'm not good with the phone. So the communication was definitely a lot limited. My mom definitely let me know that she didn't hear from me as often as she wanted to. Same with my siblings. But as far as I felt like those relationships, I got actually a little better because I had to call a lot more than I'm accustomed to calling. But it changed the fact that I felt like a lot of people didn't know what was going on with me. If you weren't near me, they didn't know what my next step was, what I was doing for work, and all that good stuff. So
what did you have to schedule time with them?
100%. Like I had to tell my mom, call you every 2 weeks. No worries. This day, every 2 weeks, I'm gonna give you a call, and that kind of give you that. Oh yeah, I'm gonna hear from him. If I didn't hear from him, I'm gonna call him. He's gonna answer, right? Especially working from home, it made it a lot easier. Like I said, didn't have to worry about I'm tired when I get home because I'm just gonna sit on the couch from the office. So pretty easy.
Gotcha. Was there a time you stepped in to help someone affected by COVID-19?
Yes and no. It was more so it affected the family because we had a passion, right?
Okay.
So it was trying to be there for my parents, be there for my siblings. I lost my aunt. It wasn't even from COVID, but it was just during the whole pandemic. So it's kind of, the funeral had to be different, right? We couldn't even come together like we want to. So that was probably like just being there for family as much as I can be. That's probably the biggest thing I had to do.
Yeah, the same thing happened with us, as far as we had someone pass during the pandemic, and it was just weird because you can have a funeral, right. You can connect, like,
you couldn't even be
people
inside the church just because we had a funeral outside in the sun, which is the first time you ever had to do anything like that. So.
Yeah. So, and for me, my father passed, and he was like the life of the party. So I think you don't imagine these people dying, but I think you do think of like when they died, there'll be some kind of ceremony and celebration, and we couldn't have that. And it was very strange. So totally understand there. Describe your experience going out in public at the height of the pandemic. What did you feel like wearing? What did it feel like wearing a mask and gloves? So you talked a little bit about that, but what did it feel like wearing the mask?
It was easy for me because I still even wear my mask to this day. It was never a hard thing for me to do. And I think it's like I said, this is part of the military, right? We had to wear masks and gear and all that type of stuff. We didn't want to. Right? It was like I wanted to wear all this stuff, but just for safety for everybody else, you have to. And like I said, a mask wasn't that hard to wear for me. I didn't cut off my circulation, have any problem breathing. So I know it could affect some people that way, but not for me.
Okay, gotcha. Has the pandemic changed your normal routines? I know that you did say, obviously you went from retail to not retail. Has work completely gone back to normal now?
For the most part, yes. I don't think I can probably say we might see less people coming to the store just because now there's a lot more access to online than there was before. You could do a lot more things online. People realize that. But as far as my schedule, it's basically back to normal.
Okay, awesome. What are some challenges you faced during the pandemic?
Well, make sure, to be honest, probably motivation. Right? Because at one point, you're motivated, you're working, getting everything that you feel like you're taking care of, you're getting financial stability, but at certain points, you kind of feel stuck because you're also limited. You don't know when the next opportunity is going to come up. You don't know when the next time you're going to be able to move like you want to move. We were trying to see if we couldn't get closer to family, or like my father-in-law was going through chemo at one point, and we were kind of limited how we can be able to get to him and see him. So that was probably the most different for me. But yeah, that's it.
What are some long-lasting consequences of the pandemic for you?
I caught COVID 3 times. Some of my lungs.
Oh wow!
I do feel like I don't have as much stamina as far as my airways as much for me personally. But I feel like it's working out. You can probably get that back in there. But that's as far as for the actual just pandemic itself. I don't know how we can go back, like as far as doing the same type of work we're doing, especially with all the remote work that's going on. A lot of people don't want to move back to the office, but I feel like a lot of process that happened in pandemic is going to actually be normal going into the future. It's probably not going back to how it was pre-pandemic for the most part.
Yeah. You said something and I wanted to ask. So you said you had COVID 3 times. Mm-hmm. Were they all like just as severe? Or?
No, it was definitely the first one was probably the worst one.
Okay.
The second time, I don't even know if I really had it or if I just was still testing positive for the first time.
Okay.
But it was that 90-day and I tested again. I was just positive. I was like, I don't even know. I didn't even know I had it. The last time I had it was bad, but wasn't as bad as the first time. But each time just felt like a different version of the flu. I had swine flu and I feel like it was kind of comparable. Wow. Yeah. When it came out.
Okay. Wow. I have a friend in New York and she had the swine flu. Mm-hmm. And when COVID came out, she's like, I've dealt with something like this and I don't want to deal with it again. Mm-hmm. So she was like, really, she still hasn't gotten COVID to this day, but she always said like, no, I've done a small epidemic. I don't want to deal with the pandemic.
Yes,
so
for sure.
That's crazy that you had the swine flu and then you had COVID 3 times. I don't think I've met anyone else who's had COVID 3 times.
Really?
Yeah.
No, that's wild.
So what was, you talked about that. What are some good things you've learned through your experience during the pandemic?
One, how to survive off of minimal stuff, right? A lot of stuff we had access to, we just didn't have access to for a little bit there. So learning how to properly plan out grocery trips, learning how to properly accommodate stuff for days, make sure things last the amount of time they're supposed to, how to properly budget my money. Granted, I was always pretty decent. I don't really spend a lot of money on different stuff, but how to manage for the future. That's what I didn't know, how to save up for a house or retirement, stuff like that. Didn't know anything about 401k, and that provided me a lot of research to do stuff on it. So that was a lot. I gave all that to COVID because I don't think I had that time to do it without it.
I agree. It's similar. Also, I remember life insurance and I remember every job had always offered it and I was like, it's fine. And now I told my husband to make sure that he needs to, we need to up it as much as we can. Exactly. You just never know. And right. I remember the first place at my old job before I went to my new job, they were like, well, we need to do a physical. And I never heard of that before. Yeah. And so I was so excited to go to my new job to get life insurance, so I could get cap it out. Right. But yeah, same. I also felt like I had to learn about finances because you obviously don't know what's going to happen now. So what was the process like transitioning over time as restrictions and recommendations have come and gone?
Like I said, it was easy for me just because I kept the same workflow. It's my wife's in the hospital. I need to make sure if she gets sick, and that's pretty much how I always get sick. She gets in the hospital and brings it home. Yeah. So, but I didn't want to have that bad feeling I got sick and made somebody else get sick, right? Yeah. So it was always wear masks, even regardless. I wore gloves for a little bit, but never wore it consistently. But as far as the mask guidance, that was always the same for me. Washing your hands, there was pretty much always nowhere. I feel like a lot of things with COVID was self-explanatory, so I just kept doing it. So just regardless of what the guidance was.
What about your family? Do you feel like they?
Yes, I did have I had some anti-vaxxers in my family, so there's a lot of people didn't say they didn't believe in COVID, but they didn't necessarily believe in the vaccine. My parents did, my mom's a nurse, so they kind of always kept the same movement like I did. We were talking like that on a regular. My little sister's, she doesn't have the best immune system, so she also mainly stayed home. So my older sister is definitely more out and about. So, but. They definitely kept pretty much the same process, but because they were in the medical field as well. So. Oh,
okay. So you have a lot of people who went with the protocols pretty.
100%. Yeah. Because they have to, right? Right. They have patients who can't really get sick.
Yeah. Right? And so you said anti-vaxxers. So does that mean that you're vaccinated or?
Yes. Well, to an extent, I didn't get all the boosters. Okay. I got the first booster and haven't got one since. So.
And you were comfortable with getting the vaccine or?
Wife got it. So when wife got it, it was like, I guess I got to get it. Right?
Yeah.
So,
Gotcha. Okay. How has your life changed since March 2020?
a lot. Like I switched stores, got married. I feel like I said it was that I learned a lot. I still have a lot to learn about. I learned about financials, about myself, about my wife, about my family. Um, so I feel like I grew as a person for sure. And I think the pandemic just escalated how fast I had to grow.
Okay. Right. And what are like what parts of the pandemic do you think sped that up the most?
As far as having to be inside, you have to focus on yourself a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really about people. You know, when life was normal, like how it is now, a lot of people post their best self on Instagram, what your vacations are like, what I'm doing as far as having fun. A lot of people have had fun inside the house, or a lot of people had to be themselves, not with everybody else. So it's kind of have that self reflection of how you yourself as a person and how you want to grow. And like I said, when you're around other people, you really either judge based off them, but give you a lot of time to just look at yourself. Sure.
Yeah. What do you think your future will look like?
Hopefully, being more financially stable, start a family, because that's the only reason why I feel like I don't feel as comfortable starting a family now. It's because I want to make sure I can take care of everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
do you think the pandemic changed any of those future plans for you, like in any way?
I think they escalated it as far as they increased the amount of money I was making. So hopefully I can only move up from here. And quicker I make more money, quicker I can have a family. Right?
What do you think? Like, I always find, because I'm with you, I also think we became financially stable and secure. What do you think? Do you reflect on like how so many other people like didn't feel that way and felt really struggle? Like, how did you cope or think about that?
Well, it's always interesting to me because I was like, where were you? Like, how do you cope being inside? A lot of people cope by spending money or by trying to spend money to find another hobby. Because the hobby was always spending it with other people, which you were not able to do or were limited for the most part. So for me, it was interesting seeing what my sisters were doing or what my parents were doing based on what I was doing, which was sisters playing video games and trying to save as much money as possible. But that was intriguing because I didn't realize how much many people, like hearing people say, I spent so much money at home. It's like, on what? Like, exactly. But definitely a lot of people had a lot of different interests or were trying to find an interest or find a hobby that's also pretty expensive.
Yeah. Do you have any additional stories or experiences to share about your experience with COVID-19?
Like the only story I have was like, it was pretty traumatizing. It was like when I had Camille first caught COVID and when she went back to work, and it was like scary about how many people were not there anymore, how many patients she's lost. Like I said, at one point it was 50-50, but that was before they did like the transporting nursing home to nursing home or whichever had that outbreak, they'll kind of move them out of there.
Okay.
She went from having like 100 patients in that nursing home to like 10 in like 2 weeks.
Wow.
And it's just crazy how fast it spread, how it felt like if you were older, you did not have a high chance of making it out. And that was really scary with having my grandparents or my parents, because she had people in her nursing home anywhere from 50 to 80, right? So it just was pretty scary of how fast it took people out. Sure.
How long was she out the first time she was with COVID?
She went out. She was out for, I think it was 10 days.
Wow.
It was something like that. It was it was like when it was not sure when you can catch it or how long you would keep it, right? So
yeah. And then like lastly, they do ask like if you want, you can share photos or any writings or artwork, video, anything with the archive, not now, but
I wish I was that creative. I don't have any of that.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much, Mark, for your time. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.